Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. A few videos back, I got a comment from viewer Jared. Hey, Jared, asking if I could do a retrospective of my life and how things have developed, say decade by decade. Uh, then thank you very much for the comment and the interest. Uh, Seeing as how in 2 days I turn 54 years old, seems like a pretty good time to do something exactly like that. I was born in 1968, um, which makes me a child of the 70s, but my formative years and where my personality and cultural knowledge really started to pick up was in the 80s. So yeah, I think let's shoot it back a little bit. 1968 to 1978, first 10 years. Uh, by 1978, I was living in my third house. Started off on Lily Avenue in Cypress, California. Moved to San Salvador Street in Cerritos, uh, and I'm never going to have the quality of existence that San Salvador Street had. A good set of friends around me, great kids on that block. Um, and the house was great. It was my parents' dream house. And school wasn't great because I was living with undiagnosed learning disabilities. And they diagnosed a bunch of problems that I'd had, but uh, my brain wasn't too great. In 1976, the bicentennial year, we had to pack up and move to St. Louis. And so I moved to the third house on Clarkson Woods Drive in Chesterfield, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis. And it was going to be quite some time before I had anything like friends again. 1978 found me, well, that was a year that I think this year Star Wars came out or just after. So my dad and I finally had some kind of. I was still a little mad for moving away from everything that I really liked to this place in St. Louis, because some like Southern California it got fucking cold, and the winters or the summers were where you had your humidity at like 99% all the time, especially down by the river. Ugh. But I discovered Star Wars with my dad, so we had some common ground. Finally, I'd started to read the science fiction collection in the basement. Uh, I think by that time I had a copy of the original box set of Dungeons and Dragons, uh, and uh, and a box of miniatures, uh, monsters. I think there was a little imp and a couple of other things, carrion crawler, some old first edition monster manual stuff. And I was actually no, that didn't happen for a couple of years yet. So that wasn't by 78. The next 10 years to 1988. Oh gosh, that's a lot. Um, that's all the way through finishing elementary school, moving from the Christian parochial school to the junior high, which wow, that was interesting. And then into high school, where high school, I picked up friends again because back in '80, uh, I had picked up my first box set. That's when I picked up the first box set of D&D and Traveler, um, and started to read those and go through those. Have a little bit of knowledge of what was going on, but very little practical experience role playing. But uh, first day of high school, homeroom in high school. The kid sitting next to me, alphabetically, was a fresh transplant from school in New York and asked me if I knew anyone we could get together for a D&D game. And I, sure, let's give that a try. And I still keep track of some of those folks. Some of those folks have passed on at this point in time. But yeah, that was when the gang started to get together in the basement, and we had amazing adventures. And 86, I graduated from high school, and by 88, I was finishing my Associate of the Arts degree in theater arts at St. Louis College, St. Louis Community College at Merrimack. Um, I joined the gaming group there and multiply the number of games that I had played and had experience with just over the top. By 88, I not only experienced Dungeons and Dragons and Traveler, but Chill, Call of Cthulhu, Stalking the Night, Bureau 13, Stalking the Night Fantastic, uh, Mechton. I hadn't, Cyberpunk wasn't even out yet, but Mechton, if Cyberpunk was out, it was only just out, but I'm feeling not quite yet. Um, and Mechton's still one of the best mecha games ever. In the most recent incarnation, most recent official incarnation, really, really good still. Makes me jealous. Uh, and GURPS. Oh my God, GURPS and like 5 world books by 88, and that was going to be more Rune Quest and just Stormbringer. Oh, love Stormbringer. I opened my eyes to what other systems and other IPs could do in that dice rolling at a table format. Yeah, 88. I was at Merrimack at 88, either just finishing up or just about to. Uh, Good friends had started a life of relationships, which wasn't going to go well for a while yet. Uh, yeah, that was fascinating. 1998. I graduated with my associate's art degree. I have moved from St. Louis back to Southern California. 98. Ah, man. Moved from the house in Chesterfield, Missouri to my parents' condo in Marina del Rey, California, a suburb of Los Angeles, depending on who you ask. My father had completed his career, the one that we got transferred back in 76. He'd completed his work with that company, which is the most polite way of saying that he got the department he was in got unceremoniously sectioned off and sold without him being able to transfer to another department. It's McDonnell Douglas, and there were a bunch of problems with that at the end of the 80s. But he found another position and was in doing what he loved in Southern California, where he loved to be, where he'd always told my mom he'd take her back. Um, so I moved in with them after a disastrous set of events in St. Louis. Yeah. Suffice it to say, I did not have good relationship luck and or chemistry back in the day, because I was a fairly awful person when it came to that. Less said about that, the better. I've gotten much better since then. Thank you very much. Moved to Marina Del Rey, started taking classes in Santa Monica. Met another gaming group, put up a sign in a gaming store in Santa Monica, and got a fresh gaming group. Again, to some folks, those I still talk to this day. Facebook has been wonderful for keeping track of people, if nothing else. Had a series of jobs. I worked as a temp. I where I gained a very, very hearty dislike of the corporate world. If you ever worked temporary work, you get that. You get to see not only how one company treats people poorly, but how all of them kind of do. So there was that. And after one just kind of ruinous experience. Well, okay, after a number of ruinous experiences, uh, well, in this process of working as a temp, going to classes when I could, moved to Lomita, California. Moved in with one of the guys I'd met as from that game ad in Santa Monica. Moved into an apartment with him and uh, started taking classes at El Camino College in Torrance. Uh, took one class in particular, an evening communications class. I had my theater arts degree was basically a communications degree with a minor in personal communications. Um, but there were so many communications classes involved in it that I was practically a communications major. I really um, enjoyed those classes and I enjoyed the kind of personal interactions I had in them. So I wanted to meet girls because I wanted to meet girls. And I took a communications class at night because I figured, well, at the very least, I'm going to be interacting with people. And so I did this stupid thing, this really dumb thing. I get to the class and I decide there's two things I'm going to do. One, I've gotten out of a relationship, which I had very recently. In my head, it was still recent. It had been a couple of years, but the ruinous relationship in St. Louis, um, was still kind of hanging on me. So I did want to meet girls, but I went in as damaged goods and advertised myself as damaged goods, which seems really, really weird now that I think about it. But so I wasn't looking for being in a relationship, but I did start talking about cartoons. I liked cartoons. I was that kid in the class. Well, an evening class at a community college. So there's this big group of demographics there. There was a former Miss Avocado California in that classroom, or a former Miss California who was an avocado spokesman for the avocado industry. Um, Go figure. But I started talking about the cartoons I enjoyed because if I started talking about my interests, maybe someone would. And there was one other person in that class, only one, who knew all of the cartoons that I was talking about. Um, Tall, blonde, very kind of statuesque, actually. And even though I referenced the rarest cartoon, one of the ones that I had experienced as a very young kid, but I could never find again, called Rocket Robin Hood. And if you want a rabbit hole, that's a fascinating one to go into. But she knew Rocket Robin Hood had been a favorite of hers, so we talked. Spoilers: that woman is my wife now. So going to a class to meet girls worked out fairly well. So I met Annalisa in in that class, and by 1998, we dated, we courted, I'd proposed, and this is before we're out of the class. We had a fairly long engagement and got married in 94. Married in 1994. We have been married for 28 years at this point. Uh, and I had finished up time in the corporate world and I was just done. So 1996, we moved from, well, I moved out of the apartment in Lomita because it hadn't worked, back to Marina Del Rey, and from Marina Del Rey to an apartment with the same roommate in Culver City. Uh, that worked out weirdly. And then when I got married, moved from the apartment in Culver City to another apartment in Culver City, one block over, literally the next street over, when we got married, and was living there. 1996, I started my second education at Irvine, Concordia University, Irvine. God, brain. Concordia University at Irvine. It's time to talk about my church life. I've not talked much about my church life, as I don't these days. But I was raised in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. My mom and dad were both very active members of the church throughout my entire life. Being in the choir, my dad was the president of more than one congregation we'd been to. Um, I taught Sunday school and had done a lot of personal study in the Bible. And so when I left the corporate world, I was looking for something, and well, I kind of wanted to move to Portland. We on and I were thinking it may be time for a move. Uh, we went and examined things in Portland, and it did not work out well. Apparently, you have a little problem being a transplant from Los Angeles if you want to move into Portland because it's full of transplants from Los Angeles who don't want any company. Love the area. I still visit every so often. I have a niece who lives in Portland. Hey, Jennifer, if you're watching, happy birthday. But that didn't work out, but since I was thinking of continuing my education anyway, went to Concordia University in Portland to see what kind of programs I could get into. They had one called Director of Christian Education. Did not go to that university, but there's another Concordia in Irvine. And after consulting with a few of the pastors that I had been with, and some of whom I had some problems with at the time, I was like, okay, you know what? Let's take a swing at this. It incorporates everything that I like to do. I had done puppet ministries for the church, and among other things, director of Christian education. That sounds good. It's education and theology and group management, all stuff that I was kind of interested in. So I went into that program, and by 1998, uh, graduated from the academic portion of that program and had an internship to do. Um, and served. I'd done a practicum study while I was in school, working at the church in Long Beach, Bethany, in Long Beach, and so I worked to. So I started my career with an internship at a church in Granada Hills, California. That was and gaming wise, I still maintain for that decade, mostly GURPS, mostly generic universal role playing system. Got involved in the convention scene in California, in Los Angeles, LAX, the Strategicon conventions, three of them a year over the 3-day weekends, and I'd gone from attending to work to volunteering. Um, to being a fairly regular volunteer for running games. That's where I got the boot camp of running games. You go and you run 4-hour games 3-4 times a weekend, and or more if you're insane like me. And I had a big decade of throwing down and rolling dice. That petered off a little bit while I was doing the stuff in Concordia, or I figured it was going to. It did. Well, let's do the next decade. 2008. My internship did not go great. I figured that was a condition of the church that I was working for and the people involved in the situations. And it turned out that was not going to be the case. I finished the internship with a B plus. I'd done some good work. I had failed in some fairly significant areas. I was failed in several significant areas by other folks. And it all balanced out, I suppose. And after struggling with waiting for a call, was called to work at a church in Manhattan Beach, California, not far from where I lived. So Anna and I didn't have to move. I could have been called to church anywhere in the United States or a few places across the world, and might have had to move. Anna had a good position by that point in time, and I think by that time by 1998 she was working for the Lamb Point Corporation, where she still works as the office manager and property manager for the building where we live. Same building, same. We've moved one apartment over, but same building, same company, and she's just been there plugging away and amazing at her job. Absolutely everything she does. So I'd finished my practicum. I finished my internship. I finally got the call to Manhattan Beach, and that I did some good stuff at that church, and it came to a point where I realized I was not a good fit for that lifestyle, that career path. That it didn't work. Uh, Church asked me to leave. There were a number of reasons. Well, and I'm not going to talk an awful lot about that because I don't want to cast poor light on the organization, the individuals involved, or myself for that matter. It wasn't a good fit. And that kind of finished me off for working for the church as well, which was, as it turns out, just another corporate entity. And ultimately, didn't treat people any better than the corporate world. Started working for myself, and that was mostly doing graphic arts and web design for a while. Wasn't great income, but I managed to make it work. And my gaming picked up, and it was during this this 2008 that I was doing volunteer work for a convention, not a convention I usually went to. A couple of friends of mine had been asked to run up something for a convention over closer to Anaheim than me, uh, run role playing there because the guy who had done it became ill. And they called me in to see if I wanted to run some stuff there. Of course I did. And while I was running at that particular convention, a documentary producer asked my friends if they knew anyone that would be interesting on camera to do for a documentary on gaming, and they recommended me, and that's how I became involved in the Dungeon Masters. Then a year shooting the Dungeon Masters, and that was fucking fascinating. Uh, and which ended up with me taking a trip to Manhattan and having a couple of nights in an apartment there, to go and watch a screening of that and do Q&A and have drinks with people afterwards, and uh, kind of a high point, just this weird otherworldly set of experiences. And moving from one job working for myself to another, it was in there that I started working with my friend Vic, and we decided to write a game. I'd written a novel. It's not a good novel. It's out there. Drive Through Fiction has it. If you search for my name there, you'll find a couple of things. Um, and I decided I was going to try and write a role playing game, and that's when we wrote Hot Chicks. That took a couple years, and not it could have been better named and could have been better marketed. It could have had different focus, but that's where I was at the time. That's who I was at the time, and that's the kind of thing I wanted to explore at the time. Turned out I can't write a joke game. I can't write something that is small and inconsequential and just a little bit of a joke, because I ended up throwing my heart and soul into that. Not only the huge initial book, 450 some odd pages, it costs about $100 to get a print on demand copy in color. Not worth it, but I've got a couple. Um, and but I ended up writing 200 books. Let's go to the next. So that's 2008, 2018. 2008, I weighed around 310, 315 pounds. That would go up and down by 5 or 10 pounds, more often up than down. And you can see we're in the period of time where I'm doing videos. And you can see I have a considerable amount more mass in the older videos. Took after my dad, ate like my dad. Apparently, I do have the heart like my dad. We'll get to that. Speaking of which, 2011, we lost him. He passed away on January 11th, 2011. Still miss him. Always will. Just the last we hadn't had a tremendous relationship. There were a few things that we saw eye to eye on. Last couple of years of his life, he was just a darling of a man, a sweetheart, treating everyone so well. He knew how much time he had left and spent it well. And I can't fault the man. If you ask the question, if you had a year left to live, what would you do? And he answered it right. Um, 2008, 2018, that 10-year period. Wow. Wrote 200 supplements for hot chicks. Wrote over 200 supplements for hot chicks. And that was during that time I hit my peak of writing productivity. And thanks to someone interviewing me for some podcast, got me in the mindset of doing a calendar of releases and holding myself to a set of deadlines for releases. So yeah, that ended up being over 200 books and a bunch of little series, and uh, enjoyed that time. Generated so much information that I can't retain it all. Well, for a number of reasons now, but there are people who followed me who know more about my stuff than I do because millions of words came out of these fingers and I cannot retain them all. So there was that was going on, and working with my art, and uh, I ran Hot Chicks conventions and used it for a number of things, a bunch of and when the game came out, I'd keep an eye on it and try and watch it and played it. I've got the Wednesday group, and that's when the Mike's Garage group worked out really well, and I had a bunch of other stuff kick up, and I was doing an awful lot of gaming and gaining the weight. My son was born in 2001, and that first 9 years of his life to, oh god, you saw him in the Dungeon Masters as this, and now he's that 2018 point where he just shot up and did so much that made me so proud of him, and that hasn't stopped. Grew into quite an individual over that time. Better than I've ever had the right of having a good kid. And wow, did I get one? The fates were more than kind. They were generous at that point. 2015, everything changed. The end of 2015, everything changed. Because that's when I was diagnosed with squamous cell carcinoma of the mouth and throat. I had cancer. And while they did not divulge what stage my cancer was at to me at that point in time, a few minutes of research was sufficient to let me know I was in stage 4. And that's not when the first indication you have. Well, I tried to get a diagnosis for a little while for this problem with swelling in my lymph nodes. Nah, it's a nasal infection. Just take some over-the-counter stuff or take some antibiotics and you'll be fine. And I wasn't. Then I started coughing blood and people started taking it seriously. But by then it was late stage. 2016 saw 3 months of radical treatment. Very radical treatment. Radical chemo, radical radiation. The end of 2015, I still weighed around 325, 330 pounds. And by April of 2016, I weighed 220. I cannot recommend the process. The treatments for cancer were very physically difficult for me. But you know what? They were better than cancer. And by the end of 2018, fully in remission. Couldn't see many traces of it. I was starting to recover from the parts of the treatment I could recover from. Um, I had moved on from the Hot Chicks project. I decided to go a little bit more market friendly and crafted the system in Hot Chicks, which I still really like, to the Victory system, which is where, in as much as I get anything done these days, that is what I am working in, and still have a bucket of projects listed there. That's another video. Um, and then, of course, 2018 takes us up to me recovering and an injury I received in March or April, about when the pandemic started, that has kept me in this chair and not moving much for the past few years. Uh, I've played a lot of role playing games in that last 10-year period, uh, and I've a lot of my stuff. I got heavily involved in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I'd been a little involved. I played third and 3.5 and really enjoyed it. I ran some fourth, and I did what I could with fourth edition, but fourth edition was tragically gut shot by a number of things. If the online component had been able to happen properly, it might have been a different experience for a lot of people. But a tragedy occurred to the team and it couldn't, and fourth edition didn't work out well. Fifth edition, I'm very pleased with. I've been doing an awful lot in fifth edition. I've written material in fifth edition. It's good stuff. And so doing a lot of that, got involved in the layer action in that last 10-year period. Um, Met some wonderful people at the friendly local gaming store and played a game with them. And when they decided they would like to go into doing a podcast, thelayeraction.com. You might want to visit there. I've done some of my best work there, and we have a lot of material that is yet to come out. Some of it's probably going to end up on the YouTube channel. I'll let you know. Um, and that, yeah, 2000, and then you've got today. We've been through a pandemic. We're still kind of in a pandemic, depending on who you ask. Uh, and I'm doing my gaming online. A lot of online computer games with my Wednesday group, the Warriors of Wednesday. Uh, this computer here is our server for that. My main computer's over here. It's a monster. My son made me nth degree here, and it is a monster by every measurement, and I couldn't be happier. It's the case is this big industrial thing, and I dream of someday filling it up with all the hardware that it can actually hold, which is another matter entirely. But it gets the job done. It gets all the jobs done. It's fucking fantastic. Patron bought me some extra hardware for it recently. Thank you so much again, Dana. And so it is maintaining my existence online and in creativity. I'm working. I'm writing. Uh, the treatments for my cancer. There's a condition called chemo brain. I've talked about it before, which doesn't really get mentioned unless you tell a doctor you're having these symptoms afterwards. And then, yeah, chemo brain's a thing. There's nothing we can do about it. You lose stuff. A lot of the stuff is I've lost a lot of neural tissue throughout my entire body. My the veins and arteries in my legs no longer have the neural connectivity to to let my body know when there's changes in my blood pressure when I stand up and whatnot. Things like that, just adaptations I have to make. Um, but that also causes some loss of tissue between the ears, and a lot of the issues I've got with motivation, writing, finding my own creativity it's still there. I need to rewire all the networks, and so I'm working on it. Caffeine, Adderall, a few things to. My ADHD is back as hard as it has ever been, and I'm working to overcome that. Doing the videos every week kind of helps. But yeah, that's 54 years old. 54 years old, married for 28 years. And I wonder what we're going to do for our 30th anniversary. We should do something special. Um, I'm still here. I'm still working. And hopefully there's a lot of stuff ahead. I want to talk a lot about um, the campaigns I'm in and how those are forming up. And the Warriors are starting a new D&D campaign. Haven't started yet. I think I'm running it. I'm not 100% sure. And that's probably not this week, but next week. We're starting that up. And so that's a good time to talk about that. So maybe that'll be coming up soon. Um, there's so much to talk about over this time doing a retrospective. I haven't begun to talk about the relationships that have the major relationships, my wife and my son, but so many other people have contributed to the quality of life that I lead and the experiences that I've had. Um, the Warriors, Mike's Garage, um, the for a lot of videos early on in matters of my companion Devin was in here. She's doing a lot of other stuff right now, but we're still working together. Um, I like Doctor Who. I do occasionally have companions because I'm terrible on my own, and I'm better off when I have an audience and someone to bounce ideas off of. Whether that's my friend Vic, my friend Mandy, who has passed on sadly, or Devin, or my son these days is a great sounding board. Or I'll get online. I'll get online with my patrons, and shoot an idea out and see what kind of feedback I get. I've lost one of them recently. Uh, Rest in peace, Jeremy. Uh, but those folks have been just an amazing, not just helping contribute to my being able to move forward financially, but also the hopping on the Discord and exchanging ideas and sharing memes, and I'll put stuff up there for people to approve or correct. Some of them edit for me. It's amazing. You folks are awesome. Um, Jim and Dana and Doug, you guys are fucking fantastic. All of you are fantastic. Uh, the Warriors and the lair action. I'm terrible alone. I do enjoy some solitude and the kind of enforced isolation of the pandemic and the injury that I've suffered. At the beginning of it, when I broke my tailbone, I just haven't recovered fully from recovering from that. It has made working on in an isolated fashion kind of my thing, but the people I've been able to deal with online and folks interact with me through YouTube, uh, really help out. I'm kind of excited to see what the next retrospective, but 2020 by 2028, I look at everything that happens over these decades. And when I first started thinking about this video, it's like, well, it's decade by decade, a few things. Now, 10 years is a long time when there's this many events going on. I can't remember where exactly I heard it. I might have read it in a Remo Williams novel. We die every 10 years, or more specifically, every decade, every 10 years. We become another person. We are not the person 10 years from now that we are now. We're not the person now that we were 10 years ago. 10 years is enough time to change, for experience and life to give you different perspectives and different ideas. And that's, yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to see who I am in 2028. Uh, I can't wait to see who we all are in 2020. It's going to be a fascinating few years. But this was thank you, Jared, for the idea for doing this. I better call it off now because I could talk about this stuff for quite some time, and maybe it's time I get back to writing some stuff and doing some art and having stuff to talk about next week. Uh, Thank you very much for watching through this very personal ramble. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you did enjoy the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If there's anything else you'd like to hear me talk about, your own experiences over this last 50 some odd years, your own experiences with gaming or with relationships or what have you, things you'd like to hear me talk about, subjects you'd like to hear me cover, questions you'd like to hear me answer, leave me a comment down below. I will love getting your comment. You'll love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. Hit the subscribe bell or subscribe button. If you do hit the subscribe button, you might want to hit the little notification bell so you're alerted when my videos become available. If you would like to contribute to my channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorm, and consider donating. Every bit helps, allows me to make better videos more often. I do a lot of interacting with my patrons. Like I said, I've got the Discord channel, and I will often reach out or share little bits and pieces of what's going on, or thoughts coming out of my head. And it's a good community. I'm very pleased to have the quality of people that I have working with me there and helping me out. And it's just an amazing group. And I invite you to join up with us and be a part of that. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. I will see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.